Hey everyone, it's your girl Amarachi. Welcome to the Playing with Portals YouTube channel where we discuss all things spiritual, intellectual, and things of that nature. I am super excited to be making this video here. I know I have been off for a while, but please bear with me as I get back into the swing of things. Now, what I wanted to talk about today is a little different than the topics we've been generally addressing on the channel. What I want to talk about today is this concept of being spiritually reckless because you know you have favor and because you know you are protected. A couple weeks ago, and actually a couple months ago, I was consistently having these conversations, particularly with young men who confided in me with some of the activities that they partook in that maybe were not the safest. Let's just say that. These young men, I could tell, were bright, they were gifted, and they had a lot of talent, but unfortunately, they were consistently in situations and environments where things could easily pop off and go the wrong way. They would say things to me, and I'd be like, you know, that can really go left, or you weren't a little scared? And the response was, nah, I know it's handled. Nah, I'm protected. Nah, I'm cool. Stuff don't touch me. And I kept looking at them and I said, you know what? I can't even fully be mad at them for this mentality because I too, on some level, have that as well, right? I know that there are certain things that I can go through and get out of because I am divinely guided. I know this. And there were times where I'm like, yeah, that was a little dicey, but I know God got me. So I got my way through and boom, it ended up going okay. And even though I wasn't in those kinds of situations, because, a lot of our young men, unfortunately, are in dicey situations. I've never been in some of the situations they described, but that overall mentality, I understood. So when they said it to me, I nodded because I said, I can't even fully get on you because I know what you're talking about. I know what you mean by saying, hey, I have been through multiple situations in my life and I always come out unscathed or barely scathed, or I come out even better, or I'm able to sense when things are about to go off and then I'm able to go, or chaos can be happening around me and I'm able to, get through it. And because that consistently happens, I'm not worried. On top of that, if I have a strong relationship with the Creator, I'm not worried. And I'm like, that's great. And that's great that you recognize that you've been able to get out of things. It's great that you have a strong relationship with the one above. But does that give us a license to be reckless? Does this mean that we can go into environments where we're like, it probably could go left. This is a riskier activity, but because I know God got me, I don't have nothing to worry about. So if you are somebody who continually is in situations where things work out in your favor or you come out unscathed, do you really need to worry about what environment you're in if you always come out on top? So then that got me thinking, does being favored or having some sort of spiritual protection give you a license to be reckless? I think a lot of us would say no. But first, let's break down, what does it mean to be protected? So, and once again, this is my definition. To me, protection means that because you operate from a certain space, so you, one, understand that you are a spiritual being. You, two, recognize that there are forces greater than you and around you that are shaping your current current reality. Three, you make an effort to be connected to the higher being and angels and other celestial creatures of the light. You make this effort. Four, you are operating in your purpose, right? So you're doing things that are in your purpose. And then five, even if you're not necessarily in those previous categories, there is a calling so big for your life that there's somewhat of a shield around you that even if you go through adversity, you're still able to build and build, connect, and ultimately heal things that you dealt with or help others heal through things that they're going through, right? So it's typically somewhere in that range. That is how I describe protection, that there are forces beyond you that are keeping you here and they're steering you towards the right direction, even when you are in dicey situations, even when things seem to be going wrong. There is something, right? Something, for me it's Yahweh, but some people will say whatever. There are spiritual things, unseen forces that are keeping you here, keeping you safe, keeping you sound, and keeping you within your mission. Now, when you know this, it should give you more confidence, because you're like, I know that there are things guiding me, so I don't have to worry. I know that I can go into this situation and I come out good. You understand what I'm saying? So that's where this confidence that these young men were speaking about, that's where it comes from. Because yeah, I know that there's stuff guiding me, right? And on top of that, I have example of that. I have been in these dicey situations consistently and I come out good. So that gives me a spiritual conviction that maybe other people don't have, but I've seen it because I know it's handled, it's good, I'm protected. And while that's great, while that is a great thing to know, and I'm glad that these young men, despite being on the younger, I mean, they were in their late teens, despite being in their late teens, they had this understanding. But what I worried about was that it did not, because they were protected and they understood themselves to be protected, they didn't really feel called to step out of those situations. It was like, well, I'm good. I'm good. I'm always good. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Maybe this activity makes me money. Maybe this activity is fun. Maybe this activity, is actually, it's actually insightful for me. Whatever it was, it did not inspire them. So I'm like, okay, they have a point, right? They do these things and they come out unscathed. So isn't that a sign enough? If you were talking about being spiritually convicted and trusting and believing in things you can't see, isn't that a sign that they're okay, kind of no matter what, or at least generally they're okay? The first thing I would say to that is past does not predict future. This is what I mean when I say that. A lot of times when we're trying to get people to, think brightly about their future, and they'll be like, well, in the past, but it's like, hey, the past doesn't necessarily dictate that every time this thing happens, it's going to go wrong for you. So it's not helpful for you to consistently use your past examples to serve as an indicator of what your present and what your future is going to be like. So that's what people will often say. And while this can be used to help somebody transform their mindset to be more positive, it also swings the other way, that, hey, just because you've been safe in the past doing this thing doesn't necessarily mean in the future you're always going to be safe. I think of a comedian Ali Sadiq. He's an independent comedian based out of Houston, Texas, and he has this really popular series about the first time he ended up in jail or when he went to prison for street activities. Let's just say that. I don't know what YouTube censors or not. And the thing is, he would sell pharmaceuticals on the street, and he had done that for a long time, made a lot of money. But what did him in was actually the time. It was he said he was done with the game. He didn't want anything of it. He got convinced to do one more drop, and that one more drop that he was convinced to do is what landed him in prison. In the past, he had gotten away with that. It had been going well. It actually was making him a substantial amount of money. But all it took was one time that completely threw away all of that, the past protection, shall we call it, and it completely changed the trajectory of his life. right? So I think that's something that I would encourage people to think. Just because in the past you've gotten away with something doesn't mean it's always going to be like that. So you don't want to play, oh, well, I'm protected, I'm protected, I'm protected, because you don't know when the lesson is coming that, hey, this is actually not beneficial for you. Secondly, when you consistently don't fully do your part because you're going to be like, well, God got it and God will push me out of here, you are sending multiple messages to God that, one, you do not steward your gifts properly because you're not doing your part, right? Any relationship, it takes two to tango. So it's really now a one-sided relationship where it's God doing all the heavy lifting and you're not really doing much. You are instead putting yourself in these not so nice situations and making it harder to dig you out. Yes, he digs you out, but is that fair? Is that how you want your relationships to be? One-sided, where you're consistently digging somebody out and they go, well, so and so is always going to dig me out so I can put myself further, right? And I think, so you could argue that's a one-sided relationship that is not fair to the creator. I gave you your gifts and I gave you your protection, not so you could abuse it, but so you could use it to do good works and bring the goodness around you. That's why I gave it to you. Now you're abusing it. So that's number two. You are abusing what God gave you to use. And when you abuse something, eventually the relationship doesn't look or go the way that it should. And the last thing here, I'm going to think about this a moment, but the last thing that comes to mind is that if you are consistently operating in this reckless state, you are probably not achieving the good things that you could be achieving and doing the good things you could be doing at the levels that you should be, right? So think of it as if because you're kind of recklessly skating by, you're at a level 10. But if you did things the right way, you did things the honorable way, and when I say that, I mean you're not throwing yourselves in these tricky, dicey situations, you probably would be operating at level 100 and more doors and better doors and cleaner doors would open up because you're now operating in accordance with the gift instead of just going, I know I have this gift and it bailed me out and I'll just do whatever I want. On one level, you're operating out of God's accord. On one level, it's your own accord, and it's God's grace and mercy that's kind of getting you out of the situation or helping you skate by. And every time you have to, whew, well, so glad that didn't go badly. And then you go. But what if you didn't have to take these deep sighs of relief? Instead, you could look up and applaud because you did things the right way to begin with, right? So when we talk about spiritual protection, let's all try to be a little less reckless, myself included, right? I think of it as okay, some people are blessed genetically, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't work out. That doesn't mean you shouldn't exercise. That doesn't mean you shouldn't, eat well. Because one day it will catch up to you. Your poor eating habits, your poor exercise, your poor sleep, it will catch up to you one day. You might be blessed genetically, but it's genetics plus your own accord, your own initiative that keeps you healthy. It's the same thing in the spirit realm. Yes, we have that protection. Yes, we have that covering, but we have to do our own part to truly make things work well. All right. So I hope to see those young gentlemen again. And I hope when I speak to them again, I'll let them know, I'm glad you're protected. But life gets better when you move in accordance and you don't have to constantly be reckless, okay? Life moves better. Life moves better when you move from a spot of true alignment, true order, instead of your own reckless accord and your own reckless operation. All right, so hopefully that helps. Hopefully that makes sense. And I'm going to take this word and try and look at places where I could be more spiritually aligned, less spiritually reckless, and more align and have a more balanced relationship. Okay, God is helping me out here, but how am I doing my own part? So that's my assignment for this week, and that's what I challenge all of us to do. So please let me know in the comments below whether or not you have ever been in a situation where you're like, yeah, I was kind of reckless, and I'm grateful I got through it, but maybe I could have done it better, right? So let me know your thoughts below. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.